Good evening. Welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. The Prime Minister's new and strong statements backing a uniform civil code for India perhaps paves the way for this becoming a major issue ahead of the general elections next year. That's our first debate tonight. Is it time for India to have a uniform civil code? Next up on the show at about 1:30, another student suicide, the 14th this year in Kota in Rajasthan. Famous for student coaching centres, again brings to the front the bizarre reality of pressure on students to perform, many of whom choose to end their own lives. This is a collective failure at so many levels. The expectations of parents, societal pressure, incredible pressure by training institutes and centres of higher learning above all. This is all a reflection of how, despite our growing economic strength, good jobs are hard to come by. The odds of getting a good job mean cracking entrance exams, which are some of the most competitive on earth. It is truly a vicious circle. But our first debate, the possibility of India having a uniform civil code, is that going to happen at all? It's been debated for decades, nothing so far, but the Prime Minister speaking about it. Is this going to be a major political issue ahead of the next elections? With the Law Commission of India issuing a public notice asking for a cross-section of opinions, the Uniform Civil Code, one of the most contentious themes in India's history, has come back into sharp focus. Any debate on a Uniform Civil Code needs to factor in the core theme of justice and equality in the eyes of our Constitution, while acknowledging the heart of the divergence. What is the heart of the divergence? Different religions, castes, practices, laws and beliefs. And then there's the political undercurrent that's been one of the sharpest divides on this issue and may re-emerge as a principal theme ahead of the next elections. The big question, is it time for India to have a uniform civil code? But first, a quick explainer of what it is that we are talking about. What is a civil code? A uniform civil code refers to a common set of laws governing but not limited to marriage, to divorce, to adoption, to inheritance and to succession. What is the fundamental difference between laws? Take a look at how different faiths have developed their personal laws in India. Let's talk about Hindu personal laws. Now, these are based on ancient texts, the Vedas, the Smritis, the Upanishads, and modern concepts of justice and equality. Muslim personal laws are based on the Quran, on the Sunnah, the Ijma, and the Qiyas. Christian personal laws are based on the Bible, on traditions, and on reason. So, a lot of divergence there. What are some of the key examples or specific points which indicate how different they are? Consider this. Muslim law in India recognizes marriage of a minor who's attained puberty as being valid despite the existence of the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act. Christian women are not recognized as natural guardians of their own children under Christian law. Sikh marriage laws lack provisions for divorce, so Sikh divorces are governed by the Hindu Marriage Act. Adoption laws. Parsis do not recognize adoptive daughters' rights under Zoroastrian practices. The Hindu Succession Act discriminates between heirs of deceased men and deceased women. There must be a recognition, and we lack this in India so far, of the inheritance rights for children born out of wedlock. Certain tribes in Meghalaya, some castes in Kerala are matriarchal. They follow a female line of descent that's different from laws elsewhere in the country. While among certain Naga tribes, women are not allowed to inherit property at all. So again, a huge divergence, which brings us finally to the larger political issue. For the BJP, a uniform civil code has been a top priority, one among three. What are the other two? Well, the abrogation of Article 370 in Kashmir, that's been done. The construction of the Ram Mandir, that's essentially been done as well. Will there now be a uniform civil code in India? That is a huge debate, perhaps one of the key issues before the next general elections. Well, joining us now, Lieutenant General Zamiruddin Shah. He's a former Vice Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University. Thanks so very much for being with us. General Shah, given the diversity that we have in our country, would it perhaps make more sense to codify existing personal laws according to the best standards of freedoms which our Constitution gives us, as opposed to a single uniform civil code?
I think that really would be the best. We are a diverse nation, and the various diversities must be honored. I think it is important that the Muslims of this country do not allow the uniform personal laws to become a Muslim issue. That's, I think, most disadvantageous for the community. The reason why these are being pressed or being explained, firstly, about plural marriages, and secondly, about triple talaq. Let me tell you that triple talaq is anathema to Islam. It lays down a clear code of 3 months period before a divorce can be given.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. This has been adopted, this shortcut in South Asia, which I think is against the principle of Islam. Plural marriages. Muslims are accused, there are jibes, hum char, hamare bache 40, all sorts of nonsense. Let me assure you, Vishnu, I have studied the statistics of the government of India. The Muslims are the least polygamous of all communities amongst India. Amongst Hindus, it is 5.8%. Amongst Muslims, it is 5.7%. So this thing about hum char, hamare 40 is all nonsense. Islam does not permit. In fact, let me tell you that the adoption of family norms, family planning norms, have been the fastest amongst Muslims. Clear and
General
simple.
Shah, it bears looking at those statistics because I had those same numbers in front of me. It comes from the last Law Commission report. In terms of those communities which are more polygamous, it's tribals at 15.25%, Buddhists at 9.7%, Jains at 6.72%, Hindus at 5.8% and Muslims at 5.7%. And yet it is the Muslim community that is so often seen to be completely, entirely, 100% opposing a uniform civil code. My point is this, sir. Is this issue being raised now for political reasons?
I do not comment on political issues, but I think that the timing is not correct. The Supreme Court has said so many times that this is an issue which can be taken up later. What we need to understand, what the Muslim community is concerned about, is that the architecture of the Uniform Civil Code has not been given. Will it apply to the taxation of Hindu undivided families? Will it apply to the land rights, forest rights of the underprivileged, the Nagas, the Mizos, the tribals? I think not. So we should accept the fact that a change is required, as change has been brought about in several Muslim countries. The Prime Minister has quoted Egypt, Tunisia, Indonesia. They have been very sensible. Muslims should not oppose the Uniform Civil Code provided we are given the architecture. What does it imply? What is the meaning? There's no infernal hurry to impose
but
it.
General, I completely understand what you're saying, and I think, and it's not me, it's the Law Commission itself which speaks about the diversity and the fact that at this stage perhaps the status quo should remain. But what I'm trying to understand is, and I know you don't want to answer the question on politics, but it's happening now, some would suggest, because of politics. The argument which is raised is that the BJP has managed Article 370, they managed the Ram Temple, and this was the third big issue on their agenda. Ahead of the elections, do you not believe that there is a real political game which is being played, and that Muslims in this country are in a sense being targeted?
Muslims should not fall prey to making the Uniform Civil Code a religious issue. This is a social issue. I asked you, will it apply to the Hindu undivided family taxations? There has been immense loss to the state because of that law. Will it apply to the tribals?
Yeah.
Will they get dispossessed of the land which is given to them, their rights? I think all these are issues which need to be examined. Muslim countries, by and large, have adopted a uniform civil code which is not anti-Islamic at all. And I think we should take our time. The time is inopportune to ram it down the throat of the country.
All right, General Shah, thank you very much for joining us, with your view on this. Let there be diversity, but at the same time, let us be progressive in our thinking, I think is essentially the point that you are making at this stage. We are joined at this stage by Zakia Soman, by Deshratan Nigam, by Dr. Ajay Alok, by Tanveer Ahmed Mir, Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court. Salman Khurshid joins us as well, as does Selim Dharanidharan, who's the spokesperson of the DMK. Mr. Khurshid, thanks very much for being with us. Do you believe that this is being done at this stage strictly for political reasons, that the timing is suspicious?
Well, it may well be, but I don't think that should worry us. I think the substance of what seems like the beginning of a debate is what we should concentrate on. It doesn't matter. BJP will choose its own time and obviously an opportune moment for itself. But I think it doesn't matter. I think if we get to the substance, and I think the general has done a wonderful job of amplifying the issues that are involved. It is not a matter of opposing any kind of reform within religion. I mean, it's happened in many religions. It can happen in India, in Islam. It's happened in Islam in other countries, including of late in Saudi Arabia. But what are elements of core religion, essential practices, as the Supreme Court calls it, and what are non-core but associated issues where there may be scope for accommodation and adjustment? I think we should concentrate on that. And the fact that the government doesn't seem interested in the real issue of reform. They seem to be interested only in creating a bogey. And I think that is very unfortunate.
Dr. Ajay Alok, is the BJP trying to create a bogey by raising discussion or debate on a uniform civil code close to the national elections?
It's really unfortunate that the discourse of the uniform civil code, which was there in our constitution, since independence and after independence, it was discussed in the Constituent Assembly also. Today, the same Congress party is calling it as a bogey. What happened for the Uniform Civil Code? It's under the directive principles of the state policy. It's in our constitution. But why it was not implemented then, 1948? Muhammad Ismail of All India Muslim Personal League, which Rahul Gandhi calls secular, he openly said it in Constituent Assembly that in the Uniform Civil Code, we want law according to Sharia. To which Mr. Patel replied, it's very much mentioned in black and white, that India is not going to accept Sharia, we'll have a uniform civil code. For Sharia, it was always Pakistan. And what took 75 long years in this country not to implement uniform civil code? Just on the pretext that it will unrest somebody.
No, but Dr. Alok, how would you respond, sir? I understand what you're saying, to the point which have been mentioned by others on this program, Salman Khurshid and General Shah before him, that if there is an evolution of Muslim personal laws to incorporate the best sense of freedom of liberties, which is enshrined in our constitution, then why would you necessarily need to push for a uniform civil code? Why not a more modern Muslim personal code, or for that matter, different religions?
Vishnu, who said we are pushing it? Had it been a matter of
Well, the Prime Minister did speak about it. He did speak about how we are one family with different laws.
Yeah, PM did speak about that in one family we cannot have two laws governing us. That was a broad consensus. But why the suggestions are being taken from the public by the Law Commission? Why today, even All India Muslim Personal Law Board, they said that we are going to send our proposal to the government mentioning parts of Sharia which needs to be included.
No, but are you suggesting that the BJP is not, sort of making this as is not pushing this beyond a point, that this was just, perhaps a one-off remark by the Prime Minister? Because if that's your clarification,
it was not. Prime Minister never gives a one-off remark.
Right. So therefore, my question is valid, Dr. Alok. It is an issue which the BJP is raising now, right? And you have reason to... Sure. Go ahead.
You should know that BJP, much before the BJP was formed, when Jansangh was there, Uniform Civil Code was always a primary agenda of the party, which has been formed with these principles, that Uniform Civil Code, abrogation of Article 370 and Ram Mandir construction. These three were the primary issues of the party, so we cannot just let it go off. When Prime Minister speaks, it gives you a momentum. It gives you clarity and seriousness.
So, Dr. Alok, just one final question before I go across to my other panelists. You make an important point. You say that the BJP has raised three issues. One is the Ram Mandir, the other is 370, and this is the third one. So, is it in that light that you are trying to, is the BJP is trying to get this done? Because it's something that you've sworn to do in the past?
See, it's not a matter of that we have taken it as a prestige issue. It's a matter for the country. Now, those who are opposing say, I don't think the whole Muslims are opposing. I do think that a large chunk of Muslim female, they are supporting this like they did in Triple Talaq. So, if you take measure the population of India, if 90% is supporting and 10% is not supporting, shouldn't we go for the Uniform Civil Code? Shouldn't this country should have one law?
No, but Dr. Alok, the problem is it's not
Hindus
just about Muslims and Hindus. It's about any number of communities. For example, and I raised several examples in my program, Sikh personal laws are problematic. Naga personal laws, Mizo personal laws, some of them are matrilineal. The rest of our society doesn't follow those norms. So therefore, it becomes problematic. When you talk about uniformity, why not diversity while ensuring and guaranteeing freedoms much more than they exist now?
Definitely, that's the agenda, and that's why discussions are happening. And it's not going to be
so
like
the word
that.
Uniform Civil Code shouldn't exist then, no?
Uniform Civil Code will exist, but in different kind of modification, what the suggestions are being asked for. People are creating fraud. People are making this is a communal issue, which is not. This is for the country, you have to understand, and it is essential for the country.
Okay. Mr. Dharanidharan, how would you respond to that? That call it what you want, it will be uniform and it will apply to the entire country.
See, firstly, the Law Commission, after taking a proper due diligence, published a 185-page report in 2018, which clearly said that Uniform Civil Code is neither desirable nor feasible. That is the point one. And second, if a thief wants a stricter law against crime, then he'll have to be suspicious. Why does he want it? So BJP is a party that has been against minorities, in particular against Islam, and it's very clear. Christoph Jeffrey wrote a wonderful book a few years back. He said how from 2014 onwards, education attainments, how they're becoming really marginalized and marginalized. So if they want to do anything good for this community, they should have more affirmative action programs and so on and so forth. But what is the BJP government doing? What did they do in Karnataka? They went and annulled the 4% reservation where they needed more of it. So it is only about doing politics. The Honorable Prime Minister does not have anything to show. That is why there are elections in Madhya Pradesh coming in the next few months. So he's trying to stoke up communal issues.
That's what your allegation. Okay.
Yes. Listen, there's one more interesting point I want to make. See, I come from Tamil Nadu. We ranked number 1 in women empowerment. We were the first state in India to have equal rights for women in ancestral property. Now we are the first state in India to allow people of all castes to be priests. Why can't BJP do it? In BJP rule state, people of all castes being priests. So let them bring uniformity in Hindu religion first. Are they willing to do that? They can do it in Uttar Pradesh or Madhya Pradesh or wherever they are in power.
Dr. Deshratna Nikamji, the point he is mentioning is that this is being done to polarize ahead of elections. That's one of the points that he mentioned. How would you respond to that?
See, I don't think that's anything about polarization. It has been in BJP's manifesto since a very long time. And Prime Minister has set the ball rolling. Now, let me give few statistics because General Shah gave you 1961 statistics. The 2019-2020 statistics by National Family Health Survey is that polygamous marriage in Hindus is 1.3% and 1.9% in Muslims and 1.6% in other religions. This is the latest statistics that we have. And what was quoted was 1961 statistics. Now, the difference out here among the Hindu and Muslims is, in Hindus, it is illegal, not sanctioned by religion. In Muslims, it is sanctioned by religion. Therefore, it is not illegal there. So in case a polygamous marriage takes place among Hindus, there are laws to deal with it. But in the case of Muslims, it is not. So that's the difference. And somebody who is doing it among the Hindus is doing something illegal and can be taken to task as per the laws. Now, tribals have to be dealt with differently. There are a lot of mixed questions of culture and religion and nature worship. So that has to be dealt. Obviously, it has to be dealt, but it has to be dealt in a different chapter altogether by Law Commission. And I think people are getting confused that the Uniform Civil Code is about doing away with gender discrimination and inequality. That's the most important point that has to be kept in mind. If polygamy takes place in whichever community, it is gender inequality. It is, if the divorce laws are one-sided, it is discrimination. So these are the things that have to be focused on. Whether the diversity, yes, India is a diverse country, no doubt about it. But if that diversity leads to discrimination and gender inequality, then it has to be dealt with. And the Uniform Civil Code is one of the best things. And in case of laws like inheritance, as you rightly pointed out, succession, adoption, guardianship, divorce, marriage, these are the issues where there should not be any discrimination vis-a-vis women are concerned. So we must focus on this gender discrimination and inequality rather than saying it has if it's a religious practice and if it leads to discrimination and inequality.
No, that's an important point. Tanveer Ahmed Mir, in fact, if you look at the issue of gender discrimination, there are so many instances when it comes to succession, for example, or adoption, which points to horrific gender discrimination. So when Deshratan Nigam calls for a uniform civil code, or Ajay Alok does the same, is there not sense that, we need one rule because there has to be one standard?
Well, there is certainly force in the submission of uniform civil code, but at the same time, what we also should take notice of is that in terms of the drafting committee for the constitution, what was there secured as basic rights or chapter 3 rights in terms of fundamental rights, the drafting committee, when Mr. Alok talked about Article 44, that is directive principles of state policy. If you look at Article 47, then the state and government shall endeavor that there should be no consumption of alcohol. But does that happen? It doesn't happen. Now, there has to be a balancing factor amongst the religious rights as conferred under Article 25 and 29 of the Constitution of India, which rights in terms of constitutional guarantees are enforceable, and as against a good motive of the state in the larger run, that can we have a civil code which is common, but which at the same time does not, intrude into the religious personal lives, because at the end of the day, any citizen and every citizen of this country, be it tribals, and that's why even when Hindu personal law was codified, there are exceptions for customary practices, even in terms of polygamy. So therefore, those exceptions are there.
No, but the thing is, do we need to justify their existence? I think the idea is to go beyond polygamy or other aspects. Absolutely. For example, even in the Muslim code, the entire age of becoming an adult, of being allowed to get married on the basis of puberty, even though it exists, it violates existing laws in the country, is seen by many Muslim scholars as being acceptable, and that it should be there. If a child
even in Hindu law,
then you are eligible to get married. Now, the law says something else that cannot be enforced.
Even in Hindu law, and Mr. Nigam is himself a very well-known lawyer, and we come back from the same university. Even under Hindu codified law, a child marriage is a valid marriage still. It's a valid marriage, though any person.
So, but then that doesn't that answer your entire argument, sir? When you say that, or when you seem to suggest that a uniform civil code is not necessarily the answer, but if the Hindu community justifies child marriage and the Muslim community, correct, or some members say that child marriage is okay, I mean, if we have a uniform civil code, we go beyond that and we ban it all.
Well, certainly that's why I started with my submission that it's a very noble idea in the longer run, but it has to be balanced with certain constitutional rights, because at the end of the day, religious beliefs cannot be tested on scientific logic, can they?
No, so they have to be based on constitutional rights. There are no two ways around that.
Constitutional rights. So the constitutional rights are guaranteed and are enforceable. Now we cannot, tomorrow have constitutional rights under Article 25, which have become a dead letter word.
Okay. Zakia Soman, would you like to come in over here? Who've been listening very patiently to this. The entire issue of the benefits of a uniform civil code, some would suggest that it's not necessarily discriminatory to any one religion if it applies equally in fighting gender discrimination against, and in all faiths. Do we need to look at it from that perspective, or do we still need to look at each civil code of each religion separately and then argue for rights or new rights?
So fundamentally, the Uniform Civil Code was about gender justice and gender equality, but it got politicized right from its inception. But somewhere down the line, Hindu laws got codified and reformed, and by and large, Hindu women ended up having all the rights in marriage and in family. The whole plethora of laws which you were listing here in your introduction, Vishnu. And similarly, even the Indian Divorce Act was modified, and Christian women were also given certain rights. But it was solely the Muslim women who were kind of left out of the ambit of law. And that's why, this perception has come about that it's like as though it's a Muslim issue. So there is a continuous demand for reform in Muslim personal law coming from the women themselves, which has fallen on deaf ears. Ideally, there should be a set of codified Muslim personal laws, just like we have codified Hindu family laws. But then who is going to codify them? The clergy feels everything is perfect, all is well, and there is no need for any change, any reform. And the kind of politics which is going on in our country in the last several decades, this opportunity never arose. From Shah Banu, which happened in 1985-86, till the movement against triple talaq in 2017, not much has changed as far as the clergy and the religious leadership and part of the political leadership is concerned. So I now really strongly feel that as a Muslim woman, the only shot at justice is to have a very inclusive, very affirmative common law, which is the Uniform Civil Code. And because I feel that the correct time for gender justice will never come, because given the fact that our society is patriarchal, highly male dominated, we'll always have some or the other reason to stall the reform. Diversity is a noble principle and should be upheld. It should not be violated. It should be upheld. Pluralism is very, very important, but you cannot discriminate in the name of diversity. How can you justify the a 14-year-old or 15-year-old girl's marriage? Sure. There are judgments of high courts, no less than Delhi High Court and Punjab and Haryana High Court, saying that this is a valid marriage because as per Islam, puberty is the marriageable age. There can be no justification for polygamy either. And if the incidence of polygamy is low, very good, then why are we defending the law, it in law? Let us have it legally abolished. Similarly, certain affirmative injunctions of the Quran, such as consent, such as meher, such as sharing property, where have they translated? They have not translated into reality because they are not codified, they are not backed by any law. And therefore, the Muslim women have really bore the brunt of the lack of codified laws. The Hindu women and the Christian women benefited because of the reforms and the amendments. So Muslim women have a right to legal parity. We need parity with our Hindu sisters, with our Christian and Parsi sisters.
Sure. Ma'am, you make lots of important points. I'm running short on time. I just wanted to go back to Mr. Khurshid for one moment. Sir, I know this discussion, we've looked at the substantive issues over here, but I must ask you from a political standpoint, where does the Congress party actually where is the Congress party on this issue, number one? Number two, I ask this because if this does become an election issue, as appears to be the case, then you've got opposition parties like the Aam Aadmi Party saying that in principle, they don't oppose a uniform civil code. What exactly is the position of the Congress? Is there again a lack of opposition unity on this issue?
No, I think it's pretty clear. Congress has made its point of view apparent to everyone. We are saying, please tell us, what does the UCC mean? What are the dimensions and aspects of UCC and the implications that it will have for people and their rights? I have no problem about prejudging anything. Congress wants to know exactly what you want to do, and they want a debate out in the open, up in the air, without actually telling us what they want to do. As far as any political party is concerned in the opposition, if they have reasons to believe that in principle they agree, then, well, in principle they must tell us what is the principle that they've agreed upon. Okay. We're not very clear that just mentioning Article 44 is enough. You have to explain to us the relationship between 44 and 25. We may end up agreeing with you, we may end up disagreeing with you. But I think right now, specifics are not being put on the board. What the people are doing is that they're making suggestions and they are implying things which are completely unnecessary. Let's have an open discussion on transparent issues, transparent facts. Then I think we will be in a better position.
All right. I'd like to thank all of you very much for joining us. We're going to take a short break at this stage, and then after that look at another pressing issue in our country, student suicides. The 14th suicide of a student in Kota this year alone. Kota, famous for its training centers. Is this an issue of ambition getting out of control, students being unable to handle pressure? Have we all failed our students? Well, next up on the show, another student suicide, the 14th this year in Kota in Rajasthan, famous for student coaching centers, again brings to us the bizarre reality of pressure on students to perform, many of whom choose to end their own lives. This is a collective failure at so many levels.
Parts of the country. Mehul, Vaishnav and Aditya Seth, both 17 years old, studying for their NEET exams in Kota for the past 2 months, living in the same area but from different parts of the country. Mehul from Salumbar, a small town in Rajasthan, and Aditya from Jaunpur in Uttar Pradesh. But one factor in common: suicide, caused by stress, the inability to cope with the rigorous coaching for medical exams, and perhaps these two young boys were also unable to carry the burden of their parents' expectations. 17-year-old Aditya's father says his son never let his parents know he was under any kind of stress.
डेली बात होता था।
डिप्रेशन में था क्या, वो कुछ तनाव में था? तनाव में था क्या?
पढ़ाई को लेके कुछ बताया हो कि कोटा में नहीं, ऐसा है और कर रहा था और मेहनत करेंगे और अच्छा जाएगा। उसका एक भाई इंजीनियर भी है, ठीक है, वो भी चाहता था कि हम भी तैयारी करके कुछ बन जाएं।
Whether the children communicated clearly or not, their parents' expectations and the desire to crack these competitive exams is what is driving these suicides. Since the beginning of this year, an alarming 14 students have died by suicide in Kota. In 222, it was 15 deaths, 3 in one day alone. In 2017, 10 students committed suicide in Kota. In 2018, 12. During 2019 and 20, in the middle of the pandemic, there were few students in Kota. In 2021, as coaching resumed, 9 students died by suicide. Experts say post-COVID, the suicide rate is increased by 60% in Kota.
बालक जो था वो वैष्णव समाज के छात्रावास में रहकर नीट की तैयारी के लिए आया था। करीब 2 महीने पहले के बाद रात को भी एक सूचना मिली थी कि एक और बच्चा था जो विज्ञान नगर में सेक्टर 2 में एक पीजी में रहकर नीट की तैयारी कर रहा था। दोनों ही करीब 2 महीने पहले कोटा में आए थे। दोनों के हमने अलग अलग मर्ग दर्ज कर दिए हैं।
घर पर छोड़कर हम हैं आपके बिल्कुल घबराने की बात नहीं है, बिल्कुल टेंशन नहीं लेना कभी भी।
This worrying trend of suicides has prompted the police to launch another helpline in the city, where police personnel go out in the field to interact with coaching students. But the sheer numbers, a floating population of over 2 lakh coaching students in the city could mean this is a mere drop in the ocean. In Jaipur, Harsha Kumari Singh, NDTV.
Well, joining us now, Shreyas Kushwaha is a NEET aspirant. Shreyas's parents, Suman Moria, also joins us in a separate city, I might add. So you've got both the mother and the child over there. Dr. Sagar Srivastav is an educational counsellor. Dr. Jayanti Datta is a renowned clinical psychologist and a very special guest. Anand Kumar, the founder of Super 30, a Padma Shri winner, and somebody who's given so much hope to so many young people in this country through his schemes. Anandji, let me come to you first. Whose fault is it that we've got such high suicide rates among students looking to crack entrance exams? Whose fault is it?
ये बोलना बड़ा मुश्किल है, लेकिन हम जैसा समझते हैं कि माता पिता का भी, पेरेंट्स का भी काफी दबाव रहता है, प्रेशर रहता है बच्चों पर कि अच्छा करें, मोहल्ले में, समाज में देखकर उन पर दबाव बनाते हैं बच्चों पर, और अपनी आखिरी जमीन जो होती है उसको भी गिरवी रख देते हैं या बेच देते हैं और बच्चों को भेजते हैं। तो बच्चा बेचारा चला जाता है वहां, और फिर कोचिंग सेंटर्स वाले भी खाना पूर्ति के लिए एक टेस्ट ले लेते हैं। अब बच्चा में उस तरह की एबिलिटी है या दूसरा कुछ काम करने की एबिलिटी है, उससे मतलब नहीं। मेडिकल की तैयारी करनी है, आ जाओ, IIT की तैयारी करनी है, आ जाओ, बच्चा तो चला जाता है। 2 दिन, 4 दिन, 10 दिन, 20 दिन के बाद उसको सफोकेशन महसूस होता है। बच्चा कहाँ जाए आखिर? कोचिंग सेंटर में कोई ऐसी काउंसलिंग की व्यवस्था नहीं है, सरकार के तरफ से कोई ऐसा सेंटर नहीं है जहां बच्चा अपना दर्द बचा सके। बच्चे आपस में कंपटीशन की भावना रखते हैं, तो उसके किसी को इतनी वक्त नहीं है, फुर्सत नहीं कि उसका ख्याल रख सके। बच्चा लाज लिहाज से अपने माता पिता, पेरेंट्स को भी नहीं बता पाता है कि उसके दर्द क्या है, अकेलापन महसूस करता है, और धीरे धीरे लगता है कि अब वापस जाके मैं करूंगा क्या, और उसको कोई जब नहीं रास्ता दिखता है तो ये अंतिम रास्ता वो अख्तियार कर लेता है। तो पेरेंट्स के को भी ध्यान देना चाहिए। कंक्लूजन, सरकार को भी इस तरह के कोचिंग पर नियंत्रण रखना चाहिए, और कोचिंग वालों को भी सोचना चाहिए कि ऐसे बच्चे जो क्लास से गायब होने लगे, मार्क्स कम आने लगा, उन पर थोड़ा ध्यान दे। क्यों ऐसा हो रहा है, बच्चा क्यों
ऐसा? ये बताइए, आपके सुपर 30 स्कीम में जब आप इतने बच्चों के साथ काम कर चुके, उनको पढ़ा चुके, उनको ट्रेन कर चुके, उनको इनकरेज कर चुके, जब आप स्ट्रेस को कैसे हैंडल करते हैं अपने स्टूडेंट्स में?
क्योंकि हम लोगों का जो ग्रुप होता है उसमें हमारे अलावे टीचर्स, हमारा भाई और हमारे परिवार के लोग सब बच्चों से 1 to 1 बात करते हैं। तो कोई बच्चा अगर क्लास में एब्सेंट होता है एक दिन तो ठीक है, दूसरे दिन तो हम लोग सीरियस हो जाते हैं। क्या उसकी तबीयत खराब है, बातें समझ में नहीं आ रही है, क्या कोई घर का प्रॉब्लम है या कोई और मानसिक प्रॉब्लम है, हम लोग तुरंत बच्चे से बातचीत करते हैं। बच्चा बोलता है सर मैथमेटिक्स नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं, मुझे इंग्लिश नहीं आती है, देखिए ये चीजों को नहीं समझ, हम लोग बैठा के पढ़ाते हैं, समझाते हैं। तो जब तक आप बच्चों के कमजोरी पर, जहां वो बेचारा दबाव महसूस कर रहा है, उस पर आप काम नहीं करिएगा तो बच्चा तो असहाय, हेल्पलेस अपने आप को महसूस करेगा और ऐसा कदम उठाएगा। इसलिए बच्चों पर ध्यान देना बहुत जरूरी है।
Dr. Jayanti Datta, is that perhaps the key issue? And it's just wonderful to hear Anand raise all of these points, that there is no system that looks into the emotional requirements of the child. There is no system that tries to understand, is the child understanding or not understanding? Is the child able to cope or not able to cope? Is that the issue?
That is one of the issues, because you see, when you go to a new place and there is so much of pressure, there is no bonding. Emotionally, you are totally isolated, and you feel, the pressure is not only from the academic front, but from the family front also. What will I say? Because these are the children, very often they come with a very last minute resort, they sell out everything, they arrange for the money, and they say no, the parents send the children as a last resort to this place, and the child has this burden also. How will I face my parents? How will I face the people in my the extended family? So all these things put a lot of pressure and stress on the child. Now, what Mr. Anand said, that's an ideal situation, where everybody is bonding with the child. Child doesn't feel isolated out. Now he can bond if he has a problem and a component of a problematic thing, he can share. Now, otherwise, in these kind of institutions, you have no scope to share. Even if you try to tell and table that I'm having this problem, you will be belittled. You will not be helped. See what happened in near Delhi University very recently. We found that the children, these aspirants were kept in a very unhygienic situation. Now, these kind of quota, it's not new. It's been going on for last so many decades. We all know that these suicides been happening. Why government is not taking steps to find out and monitor that the center is having the onus, is having the responsibility to take care? Because when you push the children and you take so much money and you don't have any onus, you don't have any responsibility, I think it's high time we should take into cognizance this, and if the need be, close down, shut down these centers. Because you are not, I am handling students, those who have come through NIT but could not clear the medical. They are into nursing or they are into some other course and they still have that bitterness. See, I could not clear the medicine. I wanted to be a doctor. This is such a kind of a pressure, the child is groomed from the very beginning. You have to be a doctor. You have to be a doctor. I think it's high time we should orient the children also that this is not the only profession. You have so many other avenues you can choose and help the children. I think, a couple of years back, I did help Delhi government to open up the kind of, the sessions in all these schools, especially the government schools, where you will have career mela, so that the child is oriented that these are the avenues. If you are not able to get the marks, you don't
There's
have to...
There's always an option. That's the key point you're mentioning.
Yes.
Dr. Datta, 1 second. I just wanted to bring up some statistics. Let's have that graphic on the 2021 National Crime Records Bureau report on suicides, because in as much as we are talking about Kota, it's actually much larger than that. At least 35 students end their life every day, according to the 2021 report. Over 13,000 students have died by suicide in 2021 alone. There was a 4.5% rise in students' deaths by suicide in 2021. Right? That's important because it was a COVID year compared to 2020. And Maharashtra has reported the highest student death by suicide. Dr. Sagar Srivastav, again, basic question, why is this happening?
Very good evening, dignitaries. First of all, we need to understand कि ये हमारा ही बनाया हुआ, हमारा ही उपजा हुआ एक समस्या है. हमने विद्यार्थी जीवन में सेट्स का अध्ययन किया था हम सब ने, और सेट्स में यूनियन बी को ही हम समझ लेते हैं. सोसाइटी का जो निचोड़ है वो टीचरों ने संभाल लिया, टीचरों का जो निचोड़ है वो पेरेंट्स तक गया, और इसका आखिरी पायदान जो है वो स्टूडेंट. तो जो स्टूडेंट है वो इतना हड़बड़ाया और इतना हवाग्रस्त है कि उसके अंदर अवेयरनेस की कमी हो जा रही है. आप साइकोलॉजिकली और इसको समझेंगे तो एक इंसान अपने जान लेने की प्रतिविधि में तब लिपे हो जाता है जब उसके पास कुछ बचा नहीं होता है सोचने को. और हमने हॉलिस्टिकली कुछ विभागों को इतना ज्यादा सेलिब्रेट कर दिया है जिसमें बहुत कुछ अब बच नहीं रहा है बच्चों के लिए. और ये क्रम हम किसी सिर्फ यहीं पर नहीं देख रहे हैं. प्रोफेशन अपने आप में इतने न्यूनतम घेरा रख लिए हैं कि हमारे पेरेंट्स ने, हमारे टीचरों ने, हमारी सोसाइटी ने ये मान लिया है कि जीवन जीविका के लिए कुछ 4-5 जो क्रम में आ जाने वाले प्रोफेशन से वही है. और अवेयरनेस की भारी कमी होने की वजह से ये सारी एक तरीके
ये एकदम सही कह रहे हैं. इनफैक्ट आनंद जी, मैं आपको यही सवाल पूछने वाला था कि हमारे देश में पॉलिसी अनुसार हम जॉब स्किलिंग पे काफी फोकस कर रहे हैं, पर हमारे थिंकिंग में जॉब स्किलिंग या स्किल डेवलपमेंट के कोई प्रोग्राम्स कोई बच्चे लेना नहीं चाहते हैं, क्योंकि 3 या 4 या 5 प्रोफेशंस ऐसे हैं जो सब बच्चे लेने चाहते हैं. पर स्किल डेवलपमेंट बहुत जरूरी है. दैट इज ऑल्सो एन एजुकेशन. डू यू थिंक देयर नीड्स टू बी अ चेंज इन माइंडसेट अबाउट एक्सेप्टिंग जॉब्स बेस्ड ऑन स्किल ट्रेनिंग?
हाँ, सही बताया आपने। दरअसल में हमारे देश में एक ऐसा माहौल बनाया गया कि आईआईटी, यूपीएससी, नीट, तो ये माहौल का तो बहुत अच्छा प्रभाव भी पड़ा, बुरा भी पड़ा। अब जो जिस लायक नहीं है, ये नहीं करे कोई बच्चा कम है, मान लीजिए कोई का स्किल है, राइटिंग स्किल। मैं एक ऐसे बच्चे को जानता हूं जो बहुत अच्छा मूर्ति बनाता था और पेंटिंग करता था, एक्स्ट्रा ऑर्डिनरी, लेकिन उसके पिताजी हमारे पास ले आए रोते हुए कि इसको आईआईटीएन बना दीजिए। मैंने लाख समझाया फिर भी नहीं माना। अंत में बच्चा भागकर बीएचयू गया, वहां पढ़ाई पढ़ा और आज अच्छा पेंटिंग करता है। तो इस तरह से हम जबरदस्ती बच्चों पर बोझ डाल रहे हैं, वो अच्छी बात नहीं। वो पेंटिंग किया, कार्टून बनाया और आज एक कंपनी में लाखों रुपया महीना कमा रहा है कार्टून बनाकर एनिमेशन के लिए। तो कहने का मेरा मकसद है कि बच्चों को स्वतंत्र सोचने के लिए अवसर दे, उन पर अपने सपनों को मत थोपे, आसपास देखकर प्रभावित होकर उन पर दबाव मत बनाए। बहुत सारे फील्ड है हमारे देश में, पूरी दुनिया में, जिसमें कुछ अच्छा करके बच्चा बहुत कुछ अच्छा कर सकता है। इसलिए मैं पेरेंट्स से रिक्वेस्ट करता हूं इस चैनल के माध्यम से कि सबसे पहली जिम्मेवारी आप पर है कि बच्चों पर दबाव न बने।
जी, Shreyas, I wanted to come to you next. You're a NEET aspirant. Are you okay if the exams don't go well for you? Would you be happy to do something else?
Yes, sir. Good evening. First of all, coming to the question, yeah, I will be completely alright. मतलब मेरे पेरेंट्स की तरफ से भी मेरे को कोई दबाव नहीं है, तो अगर पेपर नहीं भी जाता है तो मुझे सपोर्ट करते हैं। तो पेपर नहीं जाता है, अच्छा नहीं गया तो भी सपोर्ट है, अच्छा गया तो भी सपोर्ट है। उनका ये रहता है कि अच्छा गया है तो भी ज्यादा खुश ना हो, बेकार गया है तो ज्यादा डिमोटिवेटेड ना हो, एक नहीं होगा तो कुछ होगा। मेरे एक मामा थे, उनका भी, वो भी एक्चुअली नीट एस्पायरेंट थे, तो उनका भी नहीं निकला, लेकिन आज वो अच्छी कंपनी में जॉब कर रहे हैं। तो वो भी मुझे मोटिवेट करते रहते हैं कि कुछ नहीं, कुछ ना कुछ तो जीवन में हो ही जाएगा, जरूरी नहीं कि एक नीट का पेपर है वही आपके लिए सब कुछ है। तो मेरे लिए तो ऑलराइट रहता है सब कुछ।
और सुमन जी, आपने श्रेयस को कैसे इनकरेज किया? श्रेयस खुद कह रहे कि देखिए मेरे पास सिर्फ एक ऑप्शन नहीं है, मेरे पास कई ऑप्शन है, और अगर नीट का एंट्रेंस एग्जाम ना हो तो और कुछ हो जाएगा। आपने ये कैसे सोचा था डे वन से?
एक्चुअली सर, नीट का वो था, लगन था, हम लोगों ने कोई दबाव नहीं डाला। जो हमारा शुरू से ही ये आता है, आप
ऑलराइट, सॉरी,
दबाव बनाते हैं, नहीं तुम नीट करो, या पेरेंट्स अपना दबाव बनाते हैं कि नहीं नीट करो, आईआईटी करो। ये बच्चे के अंदर जिस चीज की चाहत हो, आप अगर वो करवाते हैं तो वो ज्यादा बेटर करता है। तो हम शुरू से ही अपने बच्चों को ये चाहते हैं कि वो, ये नहीं है कि वो डॉक्टर बने, इंजीनियर बने तभी वो कुछ कर सकता है। लाइफ में बहुत कुछ है भी करने के लिए। अगर आप अपना बेस्ट करेंगे तो आप जो भी करेंगे उसमें अच्छा जाएंगे।
डॉक्टर दत्ता, you had a point to make. Go ahead.
Yes. I want to say that you see in some of the government schools, you do have vocational courses introduced. But after the child is exposed to that, there is no scope, there is no job outside. So I think, it's high time, as you said, for the skill development. Along with the skill development, there should be a longitudinal planning. And when the children are groomed by these institutions for engineering, from medical, they should be given the alternate avenues also. They should be made aware that in case you are not able to do this, you can go to these sidelong professions. There are so many professions in the hospital setup. One can be anything. You could be a physiotherapist, you could be a clinical psychologist, you could be a nursing professional. So many avenues are there. The students I handle, some of them did say to me that, when I felt this is my last chance, I have not cleared the medical, I still wanted to work in the hospital setup. So I chose this particular career. So physiotherapy, occupational therapy, rehabilitation professionals, all these people, the children, unfortunately, those who are groomed specifically, know you have to crack medical only. They would do anything. And let me tell you one thing, suicides, they are not very well planned by these youngsters. They just happen. And anyone who commits suicide, it's a matter, we give crisis intervention, and believe me, it's a matter of few seconds, few minutes. If you can change, if you can support the child, if you can support the person, you see, even the professionals are committing suicide.
It is very much about crisis intervention. It is about getting there in time to actually understand a child's needs and react sympathetically and appropriately. Look, it's been so important speaking to all of you, and I think the message of Anand Kumar is so very important, that different children have different skills, and it's important for teachers and parents to understand and identify those skills and take them to where their true potential lies. It's not just about NEET, it's not just about becoming a doctor or an engineer or a civil servant. There's a world out there.